Hi everyone, Savannah here, and today we're painting a moonlight night scene, a witch flying across a glowing sky surrounded by soft mist and sparkling light. Everything you need to follow along is linked down below. That includes my free brush set, the color palette, and the outline that I used in this video, all of which are down below, so let's jump right in. Let's go ahead and change that background color. So click into layers, click background color, and in our moonlight color palette, we're going to select this dark cyan blue color as our main background color. Now let's go ahead and create a new layer, bring it below the outline layer, and we're going to fill in the shape of the witch here. We're doing one color for this. We're going to use that very dark cyan blue color in the bottom left of the color palette, and I'm using the circle brush for this. Again, we're just going to do one color. We will add a little bit of a glow, as you can see in the bottom left. There's not a lot of color to this witch because the moon is kind of encompassing around the witch, making them all one color. So we're just going to use this dark blue, and then we'll add a glow around them after we're done. But go ahead and trace and fill in this entire shape with this dark blue color. And because we are only using one color, I did turn the outline layer off for this as I'm filling in this witch because I want to make sure that it is looking like a witch riding their broomstick in the moonlit glow. And so I turned that outline layer off so I can really make sure that the proportions are correct for this witch, that everything is looking right before I alpha lock it and we add that glow to it. Now that I have that general shape, I'm just going to go around, touch up the certain sections of the broomstick. I want to bring some of those bristles out further. I'm just going to go around, touch things up, make the broomstick maybe a little bit thicker, the edges of the hat a little pointier, and I'm just going to tweak this, finalize it, and then we'll move on. Now let's go ahead and create a new layer. We're going to bring that below the witch and we're going to add in the moon here. Now there's a couple colors you can pull from. I actually end up using the light yellow orange in the top right, but you can use any of the lighter colors, and we're going to use the circle brush for this. And essentially what you're going to do is just trace the shape of the circle. You don't have to be perfect at drawing circles. Just trace the shape, and before you lift your pencil up, hold it down for a second. It'll snap into a somewhat circle, and then hold one of your fingers down on the screen and it'll make it a perfect circle. Now go ahead and fill that shape in. Now let's go ahead and create a new layer. This is going to go below the witch layer that we created, but above the moon, and this is going to be for our tree line. Now I did use one color for this, but one thing I did before I started adding it in is bring the opacity down on the outline layer so that I can see a little bit of the lines, but it's not too dark, so it's not confusing me as I'm kind of filling this in. So I turned that outline layer off as I'm filling this in, and I'm just again using a very dark blue color for this. We will lighten it up a little bit. We're not going to do too many details for this, but we're going to add this kind of dark blue color in, same that we used for the witch, and we're just going to fill in the tree line here and the house as well. And so just go ahead and start tracing and filling in this section. And like I mentioned, we're also adding the house. It's all on the same layer, the trees and this house. You can separate it out if you want to. I would put the house on a layer above the tree line, so it's in front of the tree line here. But I'm just doing it all on the same layer because we're not adding too many details to the scene. I don't feel like I need to have those on separate layers. But again, if you want to put them on separate layers, you definitely can. Even if you don't do too many details like I'm doing here. Sometimes it's good to just have it on separate layers, but I'm just going to do it all on the same layer and just kind of work on tweaking the edges of this before we move on. And I've been setting these layers to alpha lock as I've been moving along. We will add small details to these sections. I'm not setting them to alpha lock until I know for sure that those layers are good, but let's go ahead and jump back to the moon, and I'm going to add in some darker spots. Now the moon has craters, and so I'm just trying to do a little bit of that here. I'm not again doing very detailed, so I'm just adding some kind of darker circles here and there. We have the colors on the top there in the color palette is what I use mainly for the moon, and so you can pull from those colors. You can pull from any colors from the color palette. Maybe you want to do a different colored moon, which would be really cool to see, but for now I'm just kind of pulling in these colors and then blending it out. So I'm using that circle blend brush to blend those colors out. I don't want those craters to be very distinct. I just want the moon to have a little bit of color variation because again, I'm not doing a super detailed picture here. I just wanted to look very kind of eerie, very foggy. So you'll see in the bottom left picture, we add a lot of kind of these moonlit clouds around the scene as well. So I'm just adding a little bit of texture to this, or a little color variation to this, but not worried too much about the texture or the detail of having the actual craters in the moon. Now that we have that moon kind of complete, I'm going to work on the outline of the witch here. Now I'm actually going to create a new layer, set that layer to clipping mask right above our witch layer. So make sure when you do that new layer, it's right above the witch layer before you hit clipping mask, because clipping mask essentially only works on the layer right below it. And essentially what that does is anything you draw is going to be kind of within that shape of that layer below. So I'm going to use that to my advantage here to do the outline or the glow around the witch. I'm going to start with an orange. I'm using that circle blend brush, and I'm just going to trace around the edge of the witch here, and then we can add a blend mode to this, modify it a little bit, but I'm going to start with just the orange color and go around the witch, adding this kind of lighter glow around them because I want them to have that moon reflected kind of wrapped around them and making them really glow. And now that we have that pretty much done, I'm going to do a Gaussian blur on this. It's not going to blend it outside of the witch, it's going to more blend it inwards because again, we have this set to a clipping mask, so it's not going to go outside of that shape, but I want that to be a little bit softer of a blend into the witch. And then what I'm going to do is change the blend mode for this. So there's a bunch of different options you can use for this. I ended up using add as my blend mode, and then I turned the opacity down a little bit, so feel free to play around with it. Pick a blend mode that you like. You can keep the opacity at 100% if you want, or bring it down if you don't want it to be quite as bright, but we'll add that in and then we will work on next steps after this. And I actually went back around the witch again. I wanted to add a little bit more glow, and then I'm going to do one more Gaussian blur on this before we move on. And then I did decide to change the blend mode. I wasn't liking add, so I actually ended up using lighter color for this. But again, you can use any of the blend modes you want. It just depends on your aesthetics and what you want in this image or what you want it to look like. Now to make this a little bit more magical, I did a new layer. I'm grabbing that light grayish orange color, and I actually have a new brush. So if you haven't downloaded my brushes in a while, there's a new brush called Stardust. It essentially creates a bunch of clusters of stars that you can drag across the screen, and you can use this for stars if you want. I'm using this to kind of look like magical dust that's in the air as this witch is flying past. And so I am just adding that in with that lighter color just to give it a little bit more of a magical feel. Now I did end up moving this below the tree line layer because I want the witch and the moon and the tree line, or the tree line to be in front of the witch and the moon and the stardust layer. So I moved that down below, still below the witch layer, but behind the trees as well. Now I'm going to go to the tree line layer now, grab the orange color from that color palette. I'm grabbing a square brush from the brush set. I'm just going to add a single window to this house. Now you can go more detailed on this house if you want to, even on the trees or even the witch. I kept this image pretty simplistic because I just wanted to make it simplistic as an overall image. That's kind of the aesthetic that I was going for, but feel free to go a little more detailed if you want to in this image as well. Now I'm grabbing that square blend brush, still using the same color, and I'm using the square brush to add some glow to the edge of the roof here with that orange color. And then I did add a little bit of glow to the front of the house as well. I ended up actually not having it quite as glowy. I wasn't liking how it was looking. It was too glowy for my liking, and so I brought that back down. I just grabbed that circle brush, or that circle blend brush. I grabbed that dark blue that we used for the base layer here, and I'm just bringing that color down a little bit. And I couldn't really decide if I was still liking the way this front of this, where the window is, house was looking. So I added more of that orange back in, but eventually, as you can see in the bottom left, I get rid of it again. I just was not feeling that. So if you don't want to do this part here, you can skip ahead. I ended up just going back over it with that dark blue because I just was not liking how bright it was. It was kind of taken away from the moon, from my liking, and so I toned this all down, as you can see in that image on the bottom left, but for now it's there, but we'll take that part out. And then on the left side of the house, I grabbed a lighter blue color here, and I'm adding in just a little bit of color variation to give it a little bit of a softer glow. So I wanted this to be brighter, but I wanted it to be more of a cool brightness, mainly because the window gives a little bit more of a warm glow, and so I wanted that side to be more of a warm glow, so more yellow based, and I wanted the left side to be more kind of a cool based color just because I want a little bit of color distinction between those two sides. And then I did grab that dark blue again and I just kind of toned those sections down. I'm still using the circle blend brush for this, but I just toned those colors down just a little bit. They are still very bright. Like I mentioned, I didn't want the house to be the main focal point. Just wanted it to kind of be like hidden there in the trees that you kind of see after seeing the witch and the moon. But that's why I kind of just brought it down with that dark blue. If you want it to stand out, then that's absolutely fine. But I just wanted to bring it down for my personal preference. Now let's go ahead and create a new layer right above the tree line, and we're going to set that to clipping mask because we're going to take that light grayish orange color. We're going to grab a soft brush and we're going to just along the edge of this tree line add in that soft glow, and then we're going to change the blend mode and then do a little bit of the Gaussian blur on it, and we'll add a few more details, but we'll be pretty close to being done with this image here before too long. And for my blend mode, I ended up using lighter color, but you could use any of them. Again, it just depends on your personal preference. And you can also turn the opacity down if it's too bright for you. But like I mentioned, I'm doing a Gaussian blur on this. And then there's a couple more details that we're going to add to this tree line just to give it a little bit more of interest to this shape. And then I also ended up changing the color of this. To do that, you just click on that layer, set it to alpha lock, and then click that layer again and select fill layer. I just want to pull in one of the colors that was more with the moon because I want it to be like that moon glow. And then I turn that opacity down a little bit. Now the next I'm going to do is smudge down the light here. But before you do that, just make sure you set that layer alpha lock off. And then I'm using the smudge brush for this. For that, I selected the square blend brush and I'm just dragging that color down. Now I do want to add a little bit more interest to the trees here, and I have another brush in my brush set that I provide. It is a textured square brush, and I'm going to just add a little bit of that texture. I'm grabbing a dark cyan blue color, so a little bit offset from that very dark color that we're using. It's the same color I think we used on that background there, but I'm just going to add that in texturally across the surface of the tree line here, and then I'm actually going to pull in the moon color that we used in the glow and bring that down a little bit as well, so it just gives a little bit of texture without doing too much in the space, because again I wanted to keep this image pretty simplistic, but it just gives a little bit more interest so it's not just solid colors. And then I did end up going back over that lighter blue color that we just added with the darker blue that we use as that base layer just to tone it down a little bit because I still want that overall color to be dark. And then like I said, I'm going in with the tops of the trees to bring down that lighter color just a little bit more. And now we are going to do a new layer and we're going to add kind of these purpley yellowy clouds that are going across the moon. The new layer, I originally put it below the moon, but we actually want it above the moon layer. And we're going to use the circle blend brush, and I grab the purple color first to work on this, and we're just going to add in some clouds. I'm starting with the purple. It's going to be mainly in the bottom right above the tree line, but feel free to place it wherever you want in this image. And I went a little too high with that purple, so I do want to drag that layer down just a little bit and then blend a little bit of that purple edge out. And then I'm going to add in other layers. So I'm going to do an orange layer, and I'm also going to add in more of that moon color, but make it into the clouds. I want that moon to kind of disappear, as you can see into the bottom left image. I don't have those harsh lines from the moon. I soften them up quite a bit. I want that moon to be very glowy and very mysterious and have it have a lot of these clouds that are picking up that color of the moon because it's very bright. And so that's what I wanted to do here. So right now I'm adding in an orange cloud layer, and then I'll add another layer that we add in more of the coloring that we use for the moon to bring those clouds out from that glowy moon. And this part will take a little while. You don't have to do these clouds if you don't want to, or especially these clouds from the moon. I wanted to, again, make this a little bit more mysterious, make this really glowy from the moon. And so I'm going to add in quite a bit of clouds. But again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can do maybe a few purple clouds or some orange clouds scattered kind of throughout the sky. Or if you want to, you can grab that Stardust brush and add stars to the background behind the moon if you want to do that as well, not even do clouds. Really up to you how you want to do the sky. This is what I wanted to do here for the moon because, again, I wanted it to be very glowy. I wanted this moon to kind of be very bright and pull into those clouds. And so that's why I'm just kind of keep building this up, still using that circle blend brush. And I'm just going to keep building up this layer, blending between the background color and the moon to soften those edges a little bit. But I'm going to keep working on this, and then we'll be pretty close to being done here. And I did pull in the darker blue color here to blend in these clouds with the background. I just want to darken that a little bit more, that sky a little bit more. It's a little too light. And so I really wanted that contrast between the moonlit clouds and that background. And now I'm just going to soften the top of the moon here as well, blend out a little bit more between this lighter yellow color and that blue background, and then we will be done with this image. And sometimes I like to zoom out on my image just so I can see the overall composition of it without being too zoomed in on one section. It just kind of helps you visually see where you might need to add some touch up. So right now I'm adding in a little bit more of that original blue color we used for that background because I went a little too dark. But it just helps you kind of see it as a whole versus just kind of zoomed in on one section. And with that, our scene is complete. Thank you so much for watching. If you love this cozy night scene, don't forget to like, subscribe, and also leave me a comment down below which witch is your favorite witch. I'll see everyone in the next video.